Thanks everyone for joining us this evening. My name is Devin and I'm your moderator tonight. I'm here in the U.S. Senate with Senator Begich, who wanted to take some time while the Senate is in session to give everyone an update on important issues he's been working on, especially his efforts to bring the F-35 to Alaska, important issues facing Alaska veterans, fishermen, and his efforts to bring fiscal responsibility to government. Tonight, Alaskans will have the chance to chat with the Senator and ask him questions. For folks just joining us, thanks again, and in just a moment, Senator Begich will join us with opening remarks. If you have a question for him to start, please press 0 on your phone. If you do get disconnected, write down this number. I'll only say it once or twice, and if you lose it, you can always check back in on our Facebook page or on our website. It's 877-519-6647. The access code is 152218. And we'll be live streaming this on Senator Begich's website and on his YouTube page and on the Facebook page. His Facebook page is facebook.com/Begich. Again, press 0 if you have a question. For those just joining us, tonight's call will allow Alaskans to ask questions and receive an update from Senator Begich while he's here in the Senate. Again, if you have a question, press 0 on your telephone keypad and you will be transferred to one of our staff members who will take your name and your questions. We'd like to get through as many of your calls as possible. To help us get through, we must limit all callers to only one question. If your question is chosen, your name will be called and you will be connected with Senator Begich and asked to repeat it. Again, if you do get disconnected or you're unable to stay the full length of the call, a live video of the call will be posted to Senator Begich's YouTube page, website, begich.senate.gov, and his Facebook page, which again is facebook.com/Begich. Also encourage you to keep up with Senator Begich's work in the Senate. You can follow him on Twitter at the handle @Senator Begich. And now we're going to go to Senator Begich with some opening remarks.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us this evening. Again, this is a continued series of teletown hall meetings I've been doing for the last 5+ years. It gives you a chance to have a conversation with me and actually many Alaskans on the issues that you care about. So I just want to give you a quick update. And then I'm going to just really open up for questions, and Devin will read off the names as we get ready here. Again, we want to thank you for taking part of your evening tonight to participate in the teletown hall meeting. First, I just got back, as some of you may know, from Alaska. I was there at the beginning of the Iditarod race. It was very exciting to see the race start, but always making sure the weather is just right. It's where we want it cold for the dogs and colder for us, and that makes a big difference when you're running the dogs out there. So we're very excited and we're anxious to continue to watch and monitor the race. As you know, the budget for the president came out this last week. Not very happy with it in some cases. I don't think it went deep enough in reducing the budget in the sense of making the cuts that are necessary. We've been very strong on reducing the annual deficit. It started out about $1.4 trillion 5 years ago. We're down to about $500 billion a year. We need to continue to push that down, and this budget really didn't show as much progress as I had hoped. That's why I continue to support a balanced budget amendment to get this budget balanced so we can continue now and work toward paying off the national debt. Along with that, I think it missed a whole piece of how we could do better in making ourselves more energy efficient, more energy self-sufficient in the sense of utilizing oil and gas exploration in Alaska. I think it wasn't enough mentioning. To be frank, I'm a little parochial about that. I think Alaska should be on every page when it comes to energy, but there was very limited discussion. Let me move to a couple of very Alaskan issues. One is the F-35s. We have gotten some great news this last week or so. The delegation, as you know, have been working on this issue. The new Stryker fighter, F-35s, will be located somewhere in the Pacific Rim. There are 5 locations now that have been identified, down from 8. Of those, 2 are Alaska locations, Jay-Bear and Fairbanks. We are very excited about this opportunity. If we are able to land these at these 2 squadrons in Alaska, it will mean upwards to 2,000-3,000 workers associated with it, growing our workforce, bringing in new opportunities and jobs, and creating, again, an element which we know about Alaska. It is the place that has critical for the Pacific Rim when it comes to our international security. Location, location, location. That's why Alaska continues to be on the eyes and minds of the people in the Pentagon as a place to put new assets. So hopefully in the next couple months we'll get this narrowed down a little bit more, and then we'll see how Alaska fares, and I believe we'll fare very well as already two of the top five on the list. Let me also now talk about a couple other things. One is I've been busy on two pieces of legislation that I've introduced. We know Fairbanks, Interior Alaska, has incredible energy costs. I've introduced two pieces of legislation recently. One allows tax credits and tax grants or tax grants and capacity for municipalities, cities, boroughs to build out gas infrastructure, meaning if Fairbanks wants to build out a network to bring gas throughout the community, that we would help offset some of that cost. On top of that, we have another bill that would give tax credits and grants to homeowners to then connect up to that gas. We think this is an important piece of the equation of lowering costs to south or to the interior and Fairbanks region. Also, I've been very busy. As some of you may or may not know, I'm the chair of the Oceans Subcommittee that deals with the rewrite of the Magnuson-Stevens Act. As chairman of the committee, my job is to have that reauthorized this year. I'm working with my colleague, Republican Marco Rubio from Florida. We have had several hearings here in Washington. I've had a half a dozen listening sessions in Alaska, hearing from people from the recreational industry, recreational fishing industry, the commercial industry, and the subsistence users, hearing what they think needs to be fine-tuned in this piece of legislation. We are hopeful by the end of March to lay down a piece of legislation and then work to bring it to the Senate floor. We also got a great announcement on Friday. As you know, one of my goals in my office is to do everything I can to connect Alaska everywhere, anywhere to high-speed broadband. So everyone has an opportunity maybe to create commerce between communities, make sure we deliver education, healthcare, and just basic communication through high-speed broadband. We did receive word on Friday that Alaska, out of a $50 million national fund, Alaska will receive $41 million to increase high-speed or 3G plus when it comes to mobility, when it comes to our telecommunications industry. That is a really incredible opportunity to receive that kind of money. We put a lot of pressure on the FCC as Alaska has high costs, and we thought this was only fair that we see a larger percentage. Let me end by saying there are a couple issues that will still be in front of. We started the process of the Appropriations Committee. We will be busy as a member of the powerful Appropriations Committee. We're very fortunate, to be frank with you, to have two senators on that committee. Very rare to have both on there, and to be able to cover both the Democratic and Republican side. We will be working on that over the next several months, making sure that Alaska is not cut out of some of the important programs, but also making sure we bring some financial stability and responsibility to the appropriations bill. It's not just about spending, it's about making sure we do it right strategically and making sure we're getting the best bang for our dollar. So that process is now just started, and that will go on for the next several months. Let me end there and be happy to take questions that folks might have. Again, this is your opportunity to ask the question. I'll do my best to answer them. If I can't or I don't have the information at my fingertips, I will make sure we get back to you. But thank you all very much for joining us. I'll turn it back to Devin for folks who have questions for us. And we may have a little lag here while we get set up, but again, appreciate everyone joining us tonight.
And just a reminder to folks who are on the call, if you do have a question, please do press 0 and Senator Begich will answer it. Our first question tonight is going to be from Jim, who is in Bird Creek. Jim, you're live with Senator Begich.
Oh, well, thank you. And I want to thank Senator Begich for taking the time out to do this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm the former executive director for the Alaska Retail and Restaurant Association.
Oh, good.
And one of the things we're looking at to try and boost the industry in Alaska is looking at the health insurance tax that's coming up with the new ACA law.
Yes.
And it's called the HIT. People have been talking about it on the internet, that type of thing. And it just went into effect this year as part of the ACA law. And I was just wondering what you feel that needs to be done or could help be done to alleviate the burden of new costs like the hit on Alaska small businesses.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. And it's a great question. I come from the small business world. I started my first business at the age of 14. My wife is in business, started hers selling smoked salmon on a street corner, now has some retail shops. So I've been very active in the business community. Let me say this. When that bill passed, it wasn't perfect. I know some people say, well, it wasn't perfect. Why'd you vote for it? Because generally, there was a lot of good positive elements in there. But I know it needs some fixes. And here's a couple things. To lower costs on small businesses. I just introduced a bill this last week. Is actually an improvement on another bill that I introduced, which increases for those businesses 50 and under to increase their ability if they want to offer healthcare. Gives them additional tax credits, increases the capacity for them in a sense of the wages that people pay and making sure that they can qualify. It used to be only for businesses under 25. Now it will be for businesses under 50. So giving them the offsets that I believe they need to make it financially more attainable to provide insurance if they so desire. Because as you know, businesses 50 and under don't have to provide insurance, but this gives them some incentives. On top of that, I've introduced the copper plan, which is really a catastrophic plus. It ensures that we can lower the premium costs, and it may increase the end cost of deductibles, but it lowers the premium cost, giving more choice to consumers. We think this is important. So a couple fixes to focus on small businesses. Along with that, I've supported getting rid of the medical device tax because I think that has an indirect cost to small businesses and other users. On the HIT, we have looked at that. We don't have a solution yet, to be frank with you. But another issue on the small businesses is the 30-40 hour issue. Because now full-time employees are counted 30 hours or more, when in the past they were 40 hours and more. So we're working to soften that because we know that's having an impact or negative impact onto small businesses. So again, the copper plan, which I've introduced, we have a lot of good industry support around that as a great way to lower costs. The business incentive packages, which I'd encourage you to go to my website, that helps lower costs for small businesses. Third is a device tax and getting rid of that because I think that adds additional costs we don't need. And fourth on this is just the broader 30-40 hour issue and what we can do on that and lowering that cost. So I hear what exactly you're saying, Jim, and we're going to keep pounding away on some ideas. I'm not afraid to acknowledge that, again, it wasn't a perfect bill, but we cannot go back to the days when Alaskans, 34% of Alaskans in our state who got individual policies were denied health care coverage. Today, no one gets denied health care coverage, but we need to continue to make improvements and make it better and lower costs for businesses. So I agree with you on that. Next question.
Okay, our next question is going to be from Benny. Benny, you are live with Senator Begich, and he is from Delta Junction.
Thank you, Senator, for taking your time.
You bet, Benny.
My question is, right now, we don't have a doctor for the VA in Fairbanks. And we've got a new hospital going here in Delta. So I just asking, can we get some kind of representative to this hospital down here that is being starting to operate?
Is that hospital, Benny, is that one of the native clinics, or is it what's the hospital there?
No, sir. It's a new hospital they're putting up. It's just like the operation that part of it come out of Van Allen.
Okay. Well,
And it's part of it is old folks' home, which they are almost full right now of those folks.
gotcha. Okay, let me, I think I know what you're talking about now, Benny. Appreciate the further clarification. Let me say that one of the challenges we have, but first I want to say this. We will have staff directly follow up on this issue because there is a shortage in some of the areas, especially remote areas, for what we call general practitioners and general practitioner doctors. So let us do a quick follow up on that. But in the broader sense, one of the things we're trying to do, as you know, many of our clinics, the Alaska Native clinics that are going on and being built throughout Alaska, as well as the hospitals, like, for example, the new one in Nome, the new one in Barrow, the one in Kenai, Wasilla. We've been able to do one piece of change with that organization that's going to be very beneficial to veterans. For the first time, veterans in small area, remote areas in Alaska will have a choice. For example, the 800 veterans in Nome, Alaska, Nome area, in that region, both native and non-native, will have an opportunity to go to that hospital if they want to get their care, or go to the vet's clinic, or go all the way to Seattle if they want. But they will have a choice now, and the VA will reimburse those costs, so it won't be borne by the individual or the native hospital system. That's very important. And the reason why that's important, because it's hard in these remote areas just to have multiple hospitals or medical facilities and doctors stretched all over the place. So we're trying to figure out how to make this work better. But in your specific one, that sounds like a community federal funded clinic, which maybe have a hard time recruiting a doctor. So let us do a quick follow up on that, and we will. If you call back to our office in Anchorage well, actually, you're in Delta, so why don't you call to our Fairbanks office at 456 6827, 456 6827, and let us do a quick follow up. But I know exactly what you're talking about. We do have a physician shortage in some of these areas, and we are working. I increased the amount of loan forgiveness for physicians that go into remote areas or in areas of need to $100,000 as an incentive to get them out to some of our remote areas. But let us follow up specifically on this clinic in Delta. We'd be happy to do that, Benny. Next question.
Okay, and just a quick reminder for folks on the line to please press 0 if you have a question, and if for any reason we don't get to your question, you can leave a voicemail at the end of the call, so we encourage you to do so. The next question is from Shelton, who is in Craig. Shelton, you're live.
Yeah, hello, Senator Mark Begich.
Yes, Shelton.
Yes, I live in Craig, Alaska, which is on in southeast Prince of Wales Island. It's has well over 1,000 miles of roads, thanks to the government, the state and the federal. But my question here is the state and the federal lands are being closed off after they have done their logging. The state and the feds spend millions of dollars to build these roads for access to the timber, and I'm pro timber if it's done right. But after the road has been built and the land has been logged, the federal government and the state close roads off, so we don't have access for hunting, berry picking, firewood cutting, the things that we need down here to continue our lifestyle. The timber industry's been hit really hard, and for one reason or another. But the situation here is, Mark, is we're getting closed out from our roads that are all these millions of dollars have been spent on. And I've been to several different Forest Service meetings about road closures. They say they close them because they can't afford to keep them open, but they prematurely close them, and it's a real waste of money, and it's preventing us from having access to our fishing, hunting, berry picking, firewood gathering. And if you'd make a statement about this, you'd get more votes down here in Southeast on Prince of Wales.
Well, Shelton, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. No, it's a great question. I've heard this a couple times, and we are doing some review. Here's one of the issues first. I think it was 96, 97, somewhere in there. The roadless rule from then until recently, when the roadless rule was put back in, there was a lot of new roads added. So first off, there's no real solid inventory of the roads, and we're going to request the Forest Service to do a inventory. Of course, they don't want to do an inventory because it would mean we will find out how many roads are in there, and then why can't we get access, which leads to your second part of the question, and that is, if these roads are built with federal dollars, why can't we utilize them in some form or another? Now, they may have a legitimate argument on maintenance, but let's find what that is, and let's find out what those good roads can be utilized for subsistence, recreational, and other types of use that would be limited but yet usable. And I'd be happy to follow on this one. This one has come to us. We're doing a little research on it now, but I will follow up with the Forest Service specifically on two parts. One, we're already starting the discussion about them doing inventory. That we need to have them do no matter what. Second to this is once they inventory, what roads do they consider usable or could be usable by subsistence hunters, by recreational and limited use ideas? And that will be the second part of the question. So we are moving on this in a small way, and I mean small only because getting them to move has been very difficult because, as you know, I have a bill pending that gets rid of the roadless rule because I think it's harmed our timber industry, harmed our recreational industry, harmed many aspects of Southeast. And it's a bad policy, it needs to be gone. I have a bill in, Don Young has a bill in, but from the meantime, we are going to be doing and asking for their inventory and then moving to see if there's other kinds of uses. So I will absolutely, this is a good issue, and you'll hear me talk more about it in Southeast. Next question.
All right. Our next question is from Paul in Eagle River. Paul, what's your question?
Hi, Senator Begich. Thank you very much for having the discussion. My name is Paul Sangle from Eagle River. What can you do to help local school districts with budget issues? Anchorage, Fairbanks, and Juneau are all looking at laying off teachers. Can we do something about, and I know that some of it has to do with some of the federal cuts that have been made. So is there something that we can do about the sequester cuts that some of the lawmakers seem resistant to letting go of? The sequester, if I'm correct, was supposed to be a last-ditch impetus to make us pass a budget.
Right.
And I know we've since passed the budget, but they seem so resistant to let go of these sequester cuts, which were supposed to be the worst thing that we could imagine.
Right. Let me, Paul, thank you. As someone who supports education greatly, my parents were educators. Both of my sisters are educators. My sister-in-law is an educator. I graduated out of the Anchorage school system. I mean, it's an important part of who I am, what Alaska's about. My dad came up before statehood and was superintendent of military base school. So we have a lot of history around education. Now, saying that, and I'm sure if you haven't read my comments that I made to the legislature, some of them didn't really care for my comments about education because I made it very clear. First off, on their end, don't do any constitutional amendment to try to fix education, and leave public dollars in public education. Clear and simple. Now, saying that, what have we done? On the appropriation end, as you know, again, I'm on the powerful Appropriations Committee. Last year, which now that money's starting to flow through, will not hit fully until we finish out this year, but more money is now going into Head Start to the tune of $1 billion nationwide, which Alaska will receive a benefit of that. Title I monies, over $500 million, again, nationwide, which Alaska will benefit, and of special education money, over $500 million nationwide, new money. Overall education funding in this last budget, 5% increase, which is very positive. What we're battling against is the state they will disagree, some will disagree with this, that's fine, but I believe they've kind of flat funded it, not really met the needs that Alaskans have. But putting that aside, on the federal end, we are increasing it. We do now have a 2-year budget. We start appropriations here in the next couple months. And I think you'll see additional dollars going into education as the right kind of investment. It might be early education and basically K through 12. So you'll see some additional support coming from us, but we can't carry the whole load. We have our own deficit to solve, but we are increasing the dollars more than they have in the last few years. And sequester has been a problem for us on this because some are just bent on keeping that into place. We've had some modifications, still cutting the budget, but now putting money in the right investments, in this case, education. So we're having some progress. You won't see that until as we finish mid-year here and going into the next school year. But from the federal government, we are doing more this year than we have done the last several years. Next question.
Okay, our next question is from Stan in Anchorage. Stan, you're live with Senator Begich.
Good evening, Mr. Begich. Thank you for your services. My question is, I work in the oil patch, and our oil companies that support our state revenue. I just had a question about the mega mining companies that are coming into our state. they do provide peripheral services, hiring people, equipment, but would that be a possible revenue source from these outside companies?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I do. Thank you for working in the industry. As you know, as of this year, we have a record number of people working in the oil and gas industry, which is a great sign for us as Alaskan moving forward. On top of that, as you know, I've been very active making sure National Petroleum Reserve is open, first time ever for commercial development of oil and gas. That is starting this year. ConocoPhillips is in there with several hundred employees working to move that project forward. Oil and gas in the Arctic is moving forward. Shell has had a little bit of a setback, but they're aggressive. They're moving forward. I feel positive about the long-term development. So again, oil and gas has been paying a pretty good chunk, as you know, of the state budget and operating budget. On your question on mining, we have also been very fortunate over the last 5 years. At least another 500 plus employees within the mining industry over the last 5 years and continuing to grow. Down in Southeast, Niblack, Bocan, Kensington, Greens Creek, all the mines that I've supported and helped in ways to get their permits moving forward. Donlin Creek, Red Dog, Fort Knox, Usabelli, all mines that are employing and increasing capacity. But they do not pay the same kind of rate structure as the oil and gas industry. So there is some taxes that do come in from mining. I believe we will continue to see growth in the mining revenue stream to the state because the amount of mines that are developing and the prices that they now are getting for the products that they're producing. It's never going to match oil and gas because of the kind of commodity it is compared to oil and gas and the value that you get out of oil and gas. But it is paying some into the treasury of the state government, and I see it increasing over time because of the amount of mines that are developing. It's not going to be as robust as oil and gas, but it's better than where it was 5 years ago. I can guarantee you that. Next question.
Okay, for folks who are on the line or may have just joined, please do press 0 if you have a question. Our next question will be from Argenis, who is in Fairbanks.
Hey, how's it going, Senator?
Good.
So my question is, as a member of the Appropriations Committee, you're heavily involved in defense spending, and I know this year the Department of Defense is looking at, cutting troops in the active duty force, maybe in the reserve forces. Do you know as far as what you guys working on as far as building or increasing renewing the infrastructure at Allison Air Force Base to make it more appealing to be able to house the KC-46s and also the Joint Strike Fighter? I mean, with everything going on, in China and also in Europe right now, I know it seems very, very worrying that we're cutting the spending, while all the military forces are ramping up and literally kind of facing us up.
Again, another good question. I will say that Alaska is in the right place at the right time. I mean, obviously the right place, we can't move. Location, location, location. So here's a couple things. I got on the Appropriations Committee this last year. The year prior, the budget for military construction in Alaska was $18 million. This year, it's over $200 million, plus another $80 million for missile defense and growing rapidly at Missile Defense Fort Greely, which again is an important asset for not only Alaska, but for this nation. We are seeing some growth because of our location and the uniqueness of the Pacific Rim and our proximity to it, as well as to Europe. We also see the Gray Eagles. This is a special unit in the Army that utilizes drones, and we anticipate that they will be located in the interior. Eielson, if we are selected as an F-35 location, and we have J-Bear and Eielson as the two targets right now in the United States, if either one of those are selected, what will happen next is they will set a budget for infrastructure development to take care of those F-35 expansions. So that's a positive thing. They can't do that yet until they feel like this is one of the locations. I believe Alaska will be one of those locations, and we'll see millions spent in infrastructure development to support those facilities. On top of that, the crews and the staffing and the Army and Air Force and all the connectivity to it will also have to have facilities to support their efforts. Along with that, we know the Coast Guard needs a forward operating base in Alaska. They have used Eielson this last year. They had about 50 employees working with them, using it for their facility, kind of a test ground. They're going to use it again this year. Why are they doing that? Because they want to see if Eielson is the right location for one of their stationing of some of their equipment. Of course, I'm biased. I think it is. And talking to the Admiral a couple days ago, I believe he believes it is. So I think we have some opportunities there to see some infrastructure investment. But the investment over the last 24 months has increased dramatically. I will absolutely use my position on the Appropriations Committee to make responsible investments in Alaska as a strategic location for this country and internationally. And we have it's the best place to invest in. So we're seeing some of those dollars coming in, and we're very happy that we went from 18 million to over 200 million just for military construction. And then on top of that, we're seeing investment into missile defense, $80+ million. So that's a good sign for all of us. And I believe we get F-35s, it will be a huge jobs opportunity for Alaska. Next question.
Okay, next question is from Charles in Anchorage. Charles, you're live with Senator Begich.
Senator Begich, I work for Chugach, which represents the Chugach region in Alaska.
Yep.
And our question is related to the Tribal Mobility Fund. We're glad that GCI was awarded funds, but they were focused on kind of a circle project to southwest Alaska going north. And our region kind of got bypassed. So we're concerned about the Tribal Phase 2 Mobility Funds on the way they are formulating how to allocate those funds for the next Phase 2 because they're looking at the number of road miles or the number of people being served, and it's counterproductive to Alaska's issues for those areas still left out and getting connected to broadband.
Yeah.
And we have some interest from our tribes that may want to participate in the program too, to provide our own service.
Fantastic. Let me give you go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'll finish there.
Okay, two parts. One, you can rest assured we are going to be aggressive asking FCC. I talked to the chairman 2 days ago on this issue of mobility fund and making sure that Alaska, which is so different, as you know, than any other state when it comes to bringing high-speed broadband and wireless out to rural areas. So we have to constantly be on them about ensuring that we are not forgotten in this mix. So you can rest assured that we need to make sure it's not based, because we don't have any roads. That would be a big problem for us in that if they start doing on road lanes or road miles. So you can rest assured we're going to be on that. But let me also say about the GCI money they won. They are required at the time of allocation within 5 days to have tribal consultation. And so I would encourage you, if you have not done it already, making sure that GCI is doing tribal consultation and communicating with you all. Even though you feel like you've been missed, you still need to be part of that consultation. If there's any situation that you feel you're not getting that opportunity, call our office, Agatha in Alaska or Andrea here in Washington, and we'll help make sure that happens. But we are big supporters of small co-ops, tribal communities, ensuring that they have access to these dollars so they can create their own economic opportunity by creating telecom businesses. And so whatever we can do to help, we will be there for you. Next question.
Okay. Next we've got Jackie in Anchorage. Jackie, you're live with Senator Begich.
Thank you for taking my call. And I have three quick. What is your opinion on the Ukraine situation, that of America? What is your opinion on legalizing the marijuana in light of the problems, especially younger people that we have? And the most important one is that for such a time as that we're living in, all the stuff going on in the world, and there's a few people that really want to take you out and unseat you. And what makes you the better candidate, as like for me voting for you, what is, and confidence in you, how do you feel that you are the better candidate to go forward for Alaska?
Well, let me first, in the last question, I can't really talk to you from a political perspective because this is a public and government funded system, but I'll just tell you kind of what I've done. But let me first say this. First on Ukraine. Ukraine, I'm very nervous about the situation that's occurring. Russia is definitely pushing the envelope too far. I think the efforts of freezing some of the assets and having some sort of sanctions, I think, is an important step to make it clear that what they've done has violated international law. But this has to be a unified effort with the rest of the United Nations. This cannot be a U.S. being the police force. Second to that, you asked about legalizing marijuana. As a parent of an 11-year-old, I have no interest in my son having marijuana or using marijuana or sampling marijuana or being around people that are using marijuana. So that's how I look at this issue. Third, again, I can't answer the politics. You have to make that judgment. But I will say this. I will tell people the work I've done as an Alaskan. I'm born and raised in the state. I have spent my time in the private sector. I spend my time also making sure that I meet in my public service. And that's what I view this as public service. Not a, I'm hired to do a job by Alaskans, but I believe it's public service. And everything from the work I've done with securing the F-16s in Fairbanks, making sure we have a growing industry in oil and gas and mining, making sure that the education that we're trying to fight for back here, lowering student loan costs for students, or making sure our veterans have good health care. I think the best way to answer that question is each person has to make their own judgment of why they like the work I'm doing or not. I would encourage you to go to my website and look at it from there. But I can't really talk to you about the politics because, again, this is a government-funded system here. But I appreciate your question. Feel free to go to my website and get more information from there.
Okay, next question we have from David. David, you're live with Senator Begich.
Good evening, Senator. I have two questions for you. One was, do you support the carbon tax? And then the other one is, what can we do about the recent cuts to the PC or to Medicaid waiver? I was one of the unfortunate ones that got cut and needs the service but don't qualify.
Let me go ahead and answer. First question is, I do not support a carbon tax. This is false information by a group that's out there advertising. They know the record. It's been proven wrong by two independent groups. But this is the same company that owns Flint Hills that's closing Flint Hills, which will lay off 80 Alaskans and leave dirty water for people. So this is the credentials of the people who are spouting off with that misinformation. That's my rant. I'll stop there. I don't support a carbon tax. Now, the second question, we have been pushing on the governor to accept the Medicaid expansion. This is an important part to protect 40,000 Alaskans who could qualify for health care. You're one of those individuals. That's a great example. It's somewhat amazing to me. The Chamber of Commerce, business people, people in the social worker field, the healthcare field, every group you talk to suggests and tells and wants the governor to accept this Medicaid because it is important for our Alaskans to have health care coverage. Because if they don't have health care coverage and they fall through the cracks, it means at the end of the day they end up in the emergency rooms unable to pay their bills, and all the insured people pay the bills. So, I would say this, if you were trying for a waiver, please contact our office. I think you're from Anchorage, so don't hesitate to call our office, 271-5915, 271-5915. Call our office. Maybe we can help you here get through some of the red tape. But if you fall in that wrong income bracket, you will be excluded because the governor is unwilling to accept the Medicaid, which, I understand the politics, but, Democrat and Republican governors across the country are accepting this program. The federal government's paying 90% of it. It's a good deal for Alaskans, good deal for our business community, and a good deal for the individuals who need health care. Next question.
Okay, our next question will be from Andre in Palmer. Andre, you are live with Senator Begich.
Thank you. Senator Begich, thank you for showing up in Alaska again. And my question is, we're hearing about royalties that we're going to get for the gas, our gas, in the 7 to 12%, and producers are going to end up with the rest of it. Are you satisfied with that ratio? Because we feel like we're giving away resources, and 35 years later, there's easy oil is gone, and
Right.
we don't have much to show up for that. Better management of resources, in your opinion, would be a step in the right direction.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And you bet, I love coming home. So when you say showing up in Alaska, I consider it obviously my home. That's where my home is. I work in Washington. I try to get back as much as possible because it is, it is first refreshing to be back with real people and coming out of Washington, and also be back home is always a pleasure. Even though when it snows and I have to pick the ice off the deck or the staircase, it is what it is. That's what makes Alaska a great place. Let me say one of the pieces of legislation that we're working on here in my office, a bill that I've sponsored, is on revenue sharing. I'm working with also Senator Murkowski and Senator Landrieu from Louisiana. This revenue sharing bill will ensure that 37.5%, let me repeat that, 37.5% of the revenues that the federal government takes now off offshore oil and gas development, which we get nothing, zero right now, we would get. Louisiana gets this. I don't know how this happened 10 years ago. I wasn't here in Congress, but 10 years ago, Alaska got cut out of that deal. So I have a bill to make sure that Alaska gets 37.5% of those royalty oils. What would that mean in this last lease sale that occurred? It would have been over $1 billion to Alaska. We estimate, based on the production of the Arctic, that if this bill is put into law, it would average almost $30 to $40 billion to the state of Alaska over a 30-year period. So we think this is very important, and this is how we can get some fair share. I know there's great debate in regards in the state legislature what the right number is. Just remember, it's our resource. We need to get the fair value for it. Without our resource, they can't have a business. So we need to make sure we get the right value for it. I know I'm working double time for offshore oil and gas development to make sure Alaska gets its fair share and communities share in that, not just the state government. Next question.
Okay, our next question will be from Gloria in Bethel. And for folks still on the line, if you do have a question, press 0. We do have about 15 more minutes left. And if we don't get to your question, please do stay on the line and leave a voicemail. So we're going to go to Gloria in Bethel. Gloria, you're live.
Good evening, Senator Mark.
Good to hear from you.
This is Gloria Simeon. I'm the chair of the Oglesby Native Council, the Native Village of Bethel, and my question to you, well, first of all, I appreciate you using technology to be in contact with all of us. But my question to you is, I know that you've been looking at opening up the Bering and the Chukchi for resource development and making pipelines and all. We were at an EPA Region 10 conference in Spokane in September, or the beginning of October, and one of the concerns of all of the villages on the whole west coast of Alaska is please make sure that we are prepared for any and every kind of oil spill response related to that kind of development on both sides of Siberia and Alaska. And are you prepared to do that, to make sure that those are all in place before we open up this other tender area of our environment?
Thank you, Gloria. There's a couple parts of that question if I can answer. First, we are working with all of the Arctic nations on a joint effort on oil spill protection. So it's not just Alaska, it's Alaska, Canada, Russia, Norway, Finland, all of them working together because we want a unified effort here. So I believe that will definitely be in place before any long-term development occurs in the Beaufort, Chukchi, or the Arctic in general. Second, the Coast Guard As you may or may not know, one of the committee I chair, Oceans, has jurisdiction over the Coast Guard. So the bill I wrote last year that passed and the reauthorization, we're working on it again this year. We have efforts in there to make sure that there is a future forward operating base for the Coast Guard in the northern region. We need that for long-term oil spill, but also just life safety issues. Third, your issue. The way we battle the efforts around oil spill protection is not only these kind of global arrangements between international countries and our government relationship, it's going to be local communities. So I support the concept Region 10 has of making sure the communities that may be the most affected have the resources, may they be public, private, more than likely private required, to be ready at the moment notice to go and deal with these issues. So I do support that. But let me underline one point here. The Coast Guard has made it very clear to me, oil and gas development in the Arctic is not their biggest concern when it comes to oil spill. What they're very concerned with is the Bering Straits, the ships that will be moving through there and the potential damage or unknown what products they are carrying. So I believe there's a fourth element here which is being worked out, and we are coming to an agreement between Russia and us, and that is making sure the traffic that's coming through the Bering Sea is more organized and tracked so we know what's going through there and they understand the waters and there are more safety precautions put in place. So you're right on about that issue.
Okay, our next question is from Stata in Anchorage. You are live with Senator Begich.
Good evening, Senator.
Yes.
I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your vote to end the filibuster on the nominee for the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, and I wonder if you think that nomination could be rescued.
I don't, that's a great question, Theta. I'm not sure what will happen next, but let me just say this on that nomination. I know there's a lot of people out there saying, blogosphere, it's like that Allstate commercial about, don't believe everything on the internet. But they're out there talking about this nominee. Let me make it very clear on this nominee. This nominee, the individual that he was representing or was representing an organization that was asking a question regarding this trial, this individual was sentenced to death for killing a police officer, which he justly deserved that sentence because he did commit that crime. But it was commuted to a life in prison. And then 5 years after that, the NAACP was asked to ask the question about the jury and how the jury's instructions were given in regards to the issue of the life sentence or the death sentence. And both a Reagan and a Bush judge has agreed with that conclusion that NAACP attorney went through. But the problem is it's become very politicized. And it's too bad because, if now we're going to judge people who want to be in positions, if they were an attorney about who they represented, just about every attorney is never going to be allowed. I mean, some people might think that's good, but we're never going to allow any attorneys to be in any position because, under the Constitution, people have the right to be represented. So I don't know if his nomination will be rescued or be able to be brought forward again. I honestly doubt it. But I think people have blown it out of proportion in the sense of this individual and what his role was. But just to remind folks, it wasn't about reducing the sentence. It wasn't about getting this person off. It was asking the question about the jury's instructions regarding the sentencing this gentleman got for the crime he committed. And two judges agreed with the problem that was done in regards to the instructions, a Bush appointee and a Reagan appointee. So I just don't think it will come back up.
Okay, so we've got just a few minutes left. We've got time for a couple more questions. We are going to go to Barry in Anchorage. You are live with Senator Begich.
Hi, Senator Begich. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm part of a small business that has under 50 employees, and we've been providing service to our customers in 3 locations here in Alaska, and we have provided insurance for all of our employees for years. The policy we would have liked to have kept had a premium increase of 41% just this last year, and it's more than doubled in the last 5 years. And so we were forced to choose a different company with a higher deductible and a 20% increase in premiums. Why did you cast a deciding vote on Obamacare, and why do you keep supporting a program that is obviously a failure for the majority of Americans?
Well, let me first say, Barry, there are 60 people that voted on that. Everyone running for office this year is considered in their mind or in the mind of my opposition that somehow we're the last and final vote that made the difference. Let me make sure 60 people voted for the bill. I always said from the day it was passed that it wasn't perfect, it needed changes, and we're working on it. You're a business 15 under the law, you do not have to provide health care. Second, being a 15 under, if you have not done this, you have the capacity to go get a 35% tax credit against those costs that you're now incurring or have been incurring for providing health care. Third, I presented a copper plan, which the whole objective is to continue to get lower cost insurance and choices for people. So people like yourself, I don't know what kind of policy you provide, but this would give you another choice, a very low cost choice. And fourth to this, I've introduced another bill to modify these plans to give more options for businesses to get additional tax credits to offset the cost, especially 15 under who do not have to provide health care. And on top of that, if you had a plan, both MODA and Blue Cross, predominantly the controllers of all health care individual policies, if you had an individual policy, they ensured you could keep the plan you had. And also, just yesterday, yesterday it was announced that they will continue that, not them, but they will have the option to continue it for another 2 years if they want. But let me make it very clear. We cannot go back to the days when 34% of Alaskans who wanted individual health care plans were denied. Zero now. Is it a perfect bill? No. We are working with small businesses now. Don't assume just because the health care bill passed, your rates increased because of that. Insurance companies have raised the rates anyway. They had planned to raise rates. That's what they do. This controls. They have to spend now your premium, for example, 85% of it has to go to the healthcare costs. Not like they were doing in the past where some of that money did not go and it went into their profits and large salaries for executives. But let me make it clear. It's not a perfect bill. We're working to fix it, and we can't go back to the days when Alaskans were being denied healthcare coverage. And the fact is, if the governor would cover the Medicaid 40,000 Alaskans, instead of them going to the emergency room and not paying the bill, which you as someone who's paying insurance, and myself who pays 100% of my own insurance for my personal individual policy, we pay for those costs when they don't pay them. We want that covered, and they can no longer get a free ride. So we're paying that cost now. So if the governor would accept Medicaid, you would see, I believe, some impact to the pricing in the right direction. Next question.
Okay, our next question is going to be from Tina in Anchorage. You are live, Tina.
Good evening, Senator.
Yes.
I have a sweetheart who lives in Barrow. They just stopped allowing parcel post packaging up to villages. They said you can send a parcel post, but it will now cost the same as priority mail, which has basically doubled a lot of households' food costs in most of the village, and is running the risk of emptying the villages because no one can live there and afford to buy groceries. What can you do? How can you help address this?
Two parts to that question. I'm on the committee of Homeland Security Government Services. That committee has jurisdiction of the Postal Service. We just finished doing the reform to the Postal Service because it was running in the red, losing money. We've now done the reform out of the Senate committee. We hope the Senate will take this bill up. But one of the things we protected in there was bypass mail, because bypass mail keeps our costs reasonable for delivery out into rural Alaska. But your specific issue on postal rates on parcel post, the minute we heard about this, I dragged the Postmaster General into my office. We had, let me just say, a very robust conversation. He committed and recognized that Alaska was caught up in a national rate structure that really should never have been caught up into that. We have been informed as of today that March 20th, they will be able to move these rates back down to the original rates they were before and continue to offer parcel post package mailing. Because I heard from folks from Barrow, I heard from other folks, and we jumped on this very quickly. And they realized that in their policy, Alaska was an unintended consequence, and they are fixing this at our request. So we will see some relief in short order here. Tina, you should tell your friend to check into our office, but there's good news coming, and we're very proud that we used our office clout here to really push the envelope and get them to do the right thing for Alaska, and they're about to do it March 20th. Next question.
Okay, and this is going to be our last question. And for folks still on the line, please do leave a voicemail, and Senator Begich's office will follow up with you if your question wasn't answered tonight. We're going to go to Pete, who's going to wrap it up tonight.
Pete.
Oh, Senator Begich?
Yes.
My name is Pete Malik, and I knew your dad. You know, when you make your visits to rural Alaska, don't you go to some of these communities like that has a population less than 100? Your dad came out here and did that, you know, and I know him personally.
Pete, I do.
Seems like your visits are always either to Barrow or Kotzebue or Bethel or something. I mean, we do have concerns in these small villages.
Oh, Pete, I'm with you. I have been to small villages. I've been up to Kuskokwim. I've been up to Yukon. I've been at the fish camps. You know, the good news is we're a big state. The bad news is I got to travel to everywhere, and I'm doing everything I can to get as many places as possible. When I go to the hubs, I also go out to the small villages. And on top of that, when I go out to the small villages and I have people like cabinet secretaries coming in from Washington, D.C., I take them out there. I take them out to the small villages. I'm in the small plains. I'm going wherever I can to make sure that my visitors that are coming in from Washington, D.C. see real Alaska. But you can rest assured, Pete, I haven't made it to Sleep Mute yet, but I've made it to many of the small villages because I'm with you. I don't care if there's one person or 300,000 people. I will be out there to talk to an Alaskan about their issues because that's important to me. That's what keeps it real, and that's what keeps me informed of what Alaskans need, not these outside groups. So you can count on it. Thank you all very much. I know we tried to get to as many questions as possible. We appreciate your time. Again, this is a series that I've been doing for the last 5 years, and we'll continue to do these teletown hall meetings. I look forward to hearing from more of you as we move forward. Don't hesitate to contact our office on issues that are concerned to you. And don't hesitate when you're feeling like the bureaucracy of the federal government is tying you down in some ways or causing you delay in getting something done, or you have, you know, like the gentleman called earlier today that felt he couldn't get his waiver for his health care. Call our office. Let us work through this. Let us see what we can do, and we will do everything we can to help you get the results you have paid for as a taxpayer in this country and in our state for the federal government. So thank you all very much. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of your evening.